The quietest regrets often come at night. A man lies awake beside the woman he's loved for over 40 years. They've shared bills, grandkids, family holidays, but lately, barely a touch. He stares at the ceiling and wonders not about lust or fantasy, but something deeper. Does she still see me? He asks himself. Do I still feel alive? This isn't rare. It's not scandalous. It's not even dramatic. It's just common, painfully common. And what aches the most is that no one ever prepared him for this kind of loneliness. Not when his body started changing. Not when retirement began to feel more like a quiet fading than a victory lap. Not when the intimacy, the touch, the spark, the deep, wordless bond began to drift away like smoke through the cracks. I'm Dr. Thomas Leighton. I've sat with men from every walk of life, welders, school teachers, Marines, men who once felt invincible. And I've seen the toll it takes when they start to believe their value ends with their youth. But I'm here to tell you, it doesn't. Sex, intimacy, connection, they don't expire. They evolve. And if we let them vanish, we don't just lose pleasure, we lose our footing in the world. Our heart, our memory, our confidence, even our immune system all begin to unravel quietly, piece by piece. This isn't about chasing some fantasy. It's about reclaiming something essential to being fully human. If this message speaks to you, type 1. If you're unsure, type 0. Either way, thank you for being here. Let's take a quiet step together towards something real. You see, your heart, it doesn't just beat. It feels. And it thrives on more than just medication or clean eating. Regular intimacy. Even the gentle kind that begins with a soft hand or warm glance, nourishes your heart like a slow walk or a heartfelt laugh. When you're intimate, even just once in a while, your heart gets a little workout. Blood flows, arteries stretch, blood pressure eases down, and over time, your body remembers how to relax into life again. I once had a patient, Carl, 72, retired firefighter. He came in for fatigue and chest tightness. All the tests looked fine, but when I asked him gently about his closeness with his wife, he lowered his gaze. We just don't connect anymore, he said. Feels like we're living side by side, not together. He didn't need a prescription. He needed permission to rediscover his place in her arms. And when they did slowly, respectfully, Carl began to breathe easier, literally and emotionally. You see, letting go of intimacy isn't neutral. It's not just a quiet absence. It's a loss with real cost. And not just to the heart. Your body, the whole thing, starts to stiffen and slow when touch disappears. Movement becomes mechanical. Joints creak louder. You start avoiding stairs, bending less, walking shorter distances. Not because of age, but because the natural engagement that comes with physical closeness has faded. Sex, or even just sensual connection, uses muscles you don't train at the gym. Balance, coordination, subtle core work. When that goes missing, so does a key part of how your body stays young. Another man I cared for, Wendell, used to hike every Saturday. After his wife passed, he stopped. A year later, he wasn't just lonely, he had trouble walking to the mailbox. His legs weren't broken. His spirit was just untended. And that's the quiet tragedy. When we stop using our bodies for love, comfort, affection, we start losing them faster. Now, here's where it gets even more unexpected. Your brain, that beautiful, mysterious engine behind your thoughts and feelings, it responds powerfully to intimacy. Every time you're touched with care, or kissed with intention, or held in a way that says, you still matter, your brain lights up. Dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins. Not just chemistry, but clarity. These are the compounds that keep memory sharp and depression at bay. When intimacy dries up, so does the brain's natural rhythm. Suddenly, you're misplacing words, losing focus, waking up, agitated. It's not just getting older. It's the quiet withdrawal from a life once full of sensation. I remember one gentleman, Alan, who joked during an exam, "Doc, I forget what a kiss feels like." But his laugh was hollow. He wasn't forgetting because of age. He was forgetting because of absence. Connection keeps the brain awake. It tells you and the deepest parts of your biology that you still belong here. And when that fades, when you're untouched, unheld, unseen, you begin to vanish. Not in body, but in being. And here's the part most folks never say aloud. When you stop being intimate, your relationship, even the most committed one, can slowly erode. You still share meals. You still go to family events. But that electric current, that secret language of long glances and private smiles, it goes quiet. Couples start feeling like coworkers. Sometimes they stop fighting not because everything's fine, but because they've stopped caring enough to try. It's not that the love is gone. It's that the connection, the small, everyday gestures that spark emotional safety has faded. Touch, eye contact, physical reassurance. These are not luxuries. They're the glue that holds the soul of a relationship together. If you're finding this helpful or you're just starting to think differently about your health after 60, consider hitting the subscribe button. That way, you won't miss future insights made just for men like you. Because the more we talk about this, the more we remember we're not alone. And it's not just love or memory or movement that begins to shift. Sleep, that deep healing, rest our bodies desperately need as we grow older, begins to fracture. You might think it's just the price of aging, that it's normal to wake up at 3 a.m., toss for an hour, or feel groggy by mid-morning. But what many men don't realize is that your sleep is deeply tied to how and whether you're still physically connecting with someone. After sexual release, your body produces a quiet wave of calming hormones. Prolactin, for one, it helps the body relax. And oxytocin, the cuddle chemical, softens anxiety and resets your nervous system. These natural signals ease you into restful sleep the way a lullaby does for a child. Take away the intimacy, and those signals vanish too. You're left with a body still wired from the day and a mind that can't seem to settle. That's why so many older men turn to pills, white noise machines, even late-night snacks, when maybe what's missing isn't medical. Maybe what's missing is closeness. And when your sleep suffers, so does everything else: memory, energy, even the immune system. Now, I'd like to talk about something I've seen break a man's spirit more than almost anything else: the slow erosion of self-worth. It happens quietly. You start to notice that no one touches you the way they used to. Not your partner, not even yourself. The mirror becomes a place you glance at, not study. You don't feel handsome, or strong, or sexual. Just older. You begin to believe you've aged out of desire. But let me say this, with all the weight of my experience, that belief is a lie. You are still worthy of being touched, desired, and seen. Not in the way a younger man might crave it, but in the way that affirms your life still matters, body and soul. A man's confidence doesn't die with age. It dies when no one reminds him that he's still beautiful in his own way, still capable of giving and receiving warmth. I remember Harold, a man in his late 70s. He'd stopped dating after his divorce years ago. Told me he felt out of practice, like intimacy belonged to another life. But after a chance reconnection with an old friend, he began again. Slowly, gently. They started holding hands, then sitting close, then truly seeing each other. And Harold? His posture changed. His voice got steadier. He began smiling at the world again. Physical intimacy, even in small doses, can bring us back to ourselves. And when that happens, when your spirit begins to lift, something else extraordinary starts to shift. Your immune system wakes up. It may sound strange, but the same hormones that promote pleasure and relaxation also help regulate inflammation and support immunity. In fact, studies show that sexually active older adults have higher levels of antibodies like IgA, which helps defend against colds and minor infections. Think about that. Something as simple and natural as connection as human touch can literally make your body more resilient. And the opposite is true too. When that connection disappears, so does one of your body's most powerful natural defenses. You may find yourself getting sick more often, feeling more run down, not bouncing back the way you used to. It doesn't always show up loudly. Sometimes it's a pattern of low energy, a lingering cough, or just a quiet sense that you're not quite yourself anymore. That's why I don't treat intimacy like a luxury. I treat it like medicine. Of course, I understand there are barriers. Some men face erectile dysfunction, or pain, or a lack of desire. These are real challenges, but they are not endings. They are invitations to be curious, to explore new paths, to speak to your doctor, to open up with your partner. Because intimacy is not limited to one act. It is a spectrum of closeness, of care, of feeling alive in someone else's presence. And it is perhaps the greatest antidote to another thief of vitality, stress. In my early years of practice, I remember meeting a retired railroad engineer. Big hands, quiet eyes. He'd spent his life fixing engines and traveling long tracks. But in retirement, his anxiety crept in like rust. When I asked how he was coping, he shrugged and said, "I just live with it." But living with it was slowly undoing him. He couldn't sleep. He was irritable with his grandchildren. His blood pressure was climbing. And when we talked more, it became clear he hadn't held or been held in years. So much tension, so much fear, and nowhere for it to land. Sexual intimacy, even the most modest kind, releases a blend of chemicals that soften fear and lighten the mind. They don't just make you feel good, they make you feel safe, whole, connected. When that's gone, stress builds in the body like water behind a dam. Your shoulders tense, your head aches, your breathing becomes shallow, and slowly, your spirit begins to wither. That's why intimacy isn't just physical, it's profoundly emotional. It's a refuge, and when couples stop accessing that refuge, their relationship can quietly fracture. They still live together, maybe even laugh from time to time, but the depth, the intimacy, the heartbeat of the bond, it begins to dim. The saddest part? Many couples don't even realize what they've lost, not until it's far gone. And sometimes, the body follows suit. Yes, the body can forget, not all at once, but slowly. For men, it might be longer arousal times or less reliable erections. For women, increased dryness or sensitivity. These are not failures. They're reminders that the body needs care and activation, not shame. Use it or lose it may sound harsh, but it holds truth. Our bodies are made for connection. They respond to it. And without it, certain functions begin to fade. But that fade is not final. Your body wants to remember. It just needs the invitation. And that invitation starts with a conversation. And here's where it all comes full circle. Because, in the end, this conversation isn't really about sex. It's about closeness, vitality, the feeling of being seen, held, and known even as our bodies age and our roles change. You see, I've lived long enough and listened deeply enough to know this. What men over 60 truly crave isn't some wild adventure. It's simple, sacred connection. A hand that lingers. A glance that says, "I still want you." A night not filled with silence, but with shared breath and warmth. That kind of intimacy is a quiet medicine, and I've watched it heal more than prescriptions ever could. Sometimes it begins with just a hug that lasts longer than usual, or a walk, hand in hand, where no one's in a rush, or a conversation at the kitchen table where you both remember what brought you together all those years ago. These small, almost invisible acts, they rebuild the bridge. They don't demand performance. They invite presence. Now, I won't pretend this path is easy. For many, it means revisiting old wounds, disappointments, fear of rejection, or a lifetime of believing that affection fades with age. But I can promise you something, the hardest part is starting. Once you begin to open the door, light starts to filter in. I recall a man named Ben, 81 years old. His wife, Ruth, had survived cancer, and though her body had changed, his love for her had not. But they hadn't been intimate in over 4 years. "I didn't want to push," he said. "I thought maybe that part of our life was just over." But one evening, Ruth reached for his hand. No words, just touch. They sat that way for minutes in stillness. That night didn't change everything, but it changed enough. They began again, tenderly, slowly, without pressure. And Ben told me months later, "Doc, I don't feel younger, but I feel alive again." Isn't that what we're all reaching for? Not youth, not perfection, but aliveness. That quiet confirmation that we still matter, that we're still capable of giving and receiving something sacred. And so, if you're listening to this and feeling like you've drifted too far from that feeling, I want you to know you haven't. It's not too late. It doesn't matter if it's been months or years. What matters is that part of you is still listening, still curious, still hopeful. Start with kindness, especially toward yourself. Start by allowing the idea that your needs, physical, emotional, even spiritual, are not only valid but vital. Then begin where you are. Talk, touch, try. You don't need a plan. You need a pause, a moment of truth between you and the person beside you, or even just with yourself. Because whether or not you're in a relationship, you still deserve closeness. And if you are with someone, remember that they might be waiting too. Sometimes, both people are longing for the same reconnection, but neither knows how to say it. Let your first step be simple. A hand on theirs. A whisper before bed. A memory shared out loud. And if you're unsure, start with this question. Would you like to feel closer again? That question is an invitation. One that can bring down walls built by time, silence, or fear. I've seen hardened men, veterans, truckers, farmers begin again with that one sentence. It's not weakness, it's courage. And perhaps the most overlooked truth is this. Intimacy in later life can be even more meaningful than in youth because it's born not from urgency, but from depth, from trust, from a history shared and a future still unfolding. The body may move slower, but the soul knows how to love more fully. It has seen grief, endured loss, survived change, and because of that, it loves with eyes wide open. So if your body needs time, patience, or help, let it. If your partner is afraid, unsure, or dealing with their own challenges, walk gently with them. And if shame or self-doubt starts to rise, remember this. There is no expiration date on desire. Only stories we've been told or told ourselves that it no longer belongs to us. But I believe, with every fiber of my being, that it still does. And I know, you may be tempted to think, well, it's not that important anymore. But that's just another way of protecting yourself from disappointment. Because the truth is, it is important to be touched, to be wanted, to be remembered as more than a provider or a parent or a man past his prime. You are not past your prime. You are in a new one, and it's yours to define. No matter how long it's been, you can come back home to yourself, to love, to connection, to the kind of closeness that doesn't need fireworks. Just a spark. If you're still here with me listening, then maybe part of you has already said yes. Not out loud, but inside, to the possibility of something more. More than silence. More than sleep without rest. More than decades of routine. More than the belief that this part of you is behind you. Because it's not. It's waiting, patiently. And all it needs is for you to reach toward it. If this message touched you, perhaps share it quietly, as it was shared with you. A friend, a brother, a partner, someone who might need to hear that it's okay to want more. More connection, more laughter, more love. Not in spite of your age, but because of it. Thank you for spending this time with me. Here's to the courage it takes to begin again. One touch, one truth, one moment at a time.